very important that for us that it's in the middle of the village and it's right beside, there's a school there and there's a school there, there's a medical centre, there's a library, so it's right in the middle and people are continually walking past it, so they're continually seeing people taking ownership of council land and planting food and having access to food and kind of reconnecting with food growing.
And if you want it, I mean, that's how it lasts a long time. If you plant it will grow. Weave it over so you can weave it in more and it becomes more of a thing. It also means that you have to do that. So it's a high maintenance. It's a lot of work actually maintaining a living willow structure if you want it to always be good. A lot of schools have put them in there. But you just have to know that it's maintenance and you have to put it in your schedule to maintain.
Well, like that's beautiful because he's from the community and like nobody in the community really knows that these trees are in honour of like 4 children that are born here. At the end, this is Himalayan honeysuckle, which some people maybe regard as slightly invasive, but it's berries. It has these beautiful little brown berries, which when they're perfectly ripe, they taste of caramel. They're gorgeous, and so I really like that a lot of people regard that as a weed, but kind of like reframing that for them of this is an edible plant. And
was it tasty? Oh yeah.
But somebody had a lot of these stones going to spare. So the idea is that you're creating more vertical growing space as opposed to flat out space. Like water, like your rosemary doesn't want to be sitting in a damp spot. So you're creating lots of wee microclimates. With the mint is down the bottom, and that's kind of north and that's south. So it doesn't need the full sun, but it needs a wee kind of damp area.
Each one is a permaculture principle by Bill Mollison. And what you can do is maybe just have a wee look at the principle, and if there's a word in it that you don't understand at all, then we'll explain what that means. Yeah? The idea is for you to walk alone and in silence, so you're not talking to anybody, and you're just looking for an example of your principle. Okay, so this is minimum effort for maximum effect. How can I see this in the garden? Oh, they're mulching. It's just an example of that one. So that was a bit easy. Don't worry about the birds. Diversity. The first thing about pruning is dead, damaged and diseased. So you don't have to prune. And some people would say not to prune because that's working with nature. But the first thing is dead, damaged and diseased. Can you see on this tree any dead, damaged or diseased branches? This has been cut with tools that weren't actually sharp, which is why they have just bought new tools. But you'd be better off sharpening them. But you have to know where to buy a sharpener. But I think that's an example of somewhere that we might want to cut just to do that again. Yeah. So the green is a paint sealant. I'm sure there was some canker here. I can't see it now, but someone must be able to see it from your angle. This one. Yeah. So it kind of looks like this. So do you see what I'm doing? I'm just tying a piece of string around it. Once you're an expert, you do not need to do this, but I think it's quite nice because you should never cut more than a third of a tree away. That's the first reason why you would cut something. Dead, damaged and disease. So other than that, it's arguable whether you would or you wouldn't. Because it's west coast of Scotland, a tree needs air in about it. So we're going for, this is an apple tree, going for a wine glass shape. We all know a wine glass shape? Yeah. So this one would be cut to 4 inches or 4 buds. So 1, 2, 3, 4 buds would be to here. Typically to outward facing buds. So where you cut, if I cut it here, then the bud which is just below, this one, will grow in this direction. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. By cutting it, you encourage it to turn its leaf buds into fruit buds. and that you create a fruiting spur back there, and yeah, we can call it different things, but you
I don't know.
cut it in the autumn and not in the spring.
Yeah.
That one. I mean, it's also going to get cut off that canker. Are you quite confident now? Would you cut it where you've put them? No. Why? What wouldn't you?
Just had the fear. If it was my own tree, fine. Not this tree. I've only counted to one bud because it's the only bud that I can see. The rest don't seem to be.
So why would you cut it at all? This one. What's wrong with it? And so it will grow in this direction, for where she's cut it. If she'd cut it here, it would grow in this direction.
Okay.
So typically that's what you try and do. You try and cut it here, so it would grow. It's growing out the way. So that's why they say prune to an outward-facing bud. It would be like the bottom one.
Okay. Cleaning your toes. We don't want them spread.
Again, that's the 45-degree angle. Nervous. I've got a camera on me. What if I make a mess? So it's that snippy, snappy bit at the end is what stops it from going like, yeah, making a bit of a mess. There's a nice, neat, sharp cut, and it's at that 45-degree angle.
So just cutting it here.
Yeah, above that, 45-degree angle. Okay. Yeah. Right. There. Yeah, but no, but lower. Do you see? Do you see this bud here is pointing that way? So it's going to grow. If you cut above that one will grow, which is pointing outwards, which is good.
Okay. So let's get in between those two.
Just below where the string is.
There.
Yeah.
The right way.
Good. These loppers are super sharp, so that was fine.
Yeah.
Typically what you try and do with them is you open up the mouth fully and you put it into this bit. But
Souvenir.
sharp.
Thanks.
Your souvenir. Go grass.
I've got everything gardened.
What did I say? I think it's a year and a half old. It's just chipped bark and donkey manure. You can use horse manure as well. That's maybe a wee bit frozen. So it doesn't look very composted on top, but underneath it's starting to compost down. But it's not fully decomposed. It's still quite woody. So I would use this on top as a surface mulch. And if I'm going to plant anything, I part that out the way and put the plant in and bring it back. But I don't integrate it into the soil because it's not decomposed fully. It could rob a lot of nitrogen as it decomposes. Sorry, wormies. Will we use this cardboard for demonstration purposes? So we did this bed already, cardboard, and then mulch on top of it. So pull these out.
What did you say, Cat? You pull out by the roots? Brassicas and
Just brassicas.
just brassicas.
Yeah. Just got pulled on this one. That was stupid. So I'm not going to pull the moss out. Just cover it all with cardboard. Habitat for insects, but also
Yeah.
the birds come down and they love pecking at it. And right now they keep pulling bits off for their nests. I'm assuming, or they just like destroying my garden. I'm not sure. So yes, you've got your cardboard to suppress the weeds, and then you're literally, you know, the roots are really, really deep. We were just pulling it out, like what came up, we were just pulling out, and you wouldn't stick that in your compost pile.
Yeah.
You stick it in a bucket. So any, I should say that, any perennial weeds. So if you were to count a dandelion as a weed's just a plant that grows in a place you don't want it. But like your docks, your dandelions, your mare's tail, stick it in a bucket with
Is
water.
mare's tail the same as horsetail? Is that the same
I think so,
Is that
yeah.
liquid
It's
as
a plant food
Yeah.
because it's got really deep tap roots that pull up all the nutrients. It's full of silica, so it's really good for all your plants. And then once the actual plant material has broken down into black mush, then you would stick that in the compost pile. But yeah, it was prolific at the planter, and all we did was pulling it, and there's none.
Oh.
There's none now,
Right.
literally none. So the roots are there, I'm sure, and I'm sure it's going somewhere else,
Yeah.
but it's not coming up in our veg space. Crofters used to use like piles of seaweed to grow in, and some people will now say that if you use too much seaweed, it can change the pH of your soil because of the salt in it. So a way to get around that is I got that from the beach weeks and weeks ago, and I've just left it in those bags, and the rains like rinsed it pretty much. So I don't have any issue putting it on the soil. Loads of worms in it. And so when I go to plant, I'll just make a hole, mix it in. Just don't like just have leaf mould.
Yeah.
I guess is the thing, isn't it? Diversity. So this stuff that's coming up here is my compost, sending nitrogen to all of the plants. But I'll also crop it like 2 or 3 times, and then either make a tea out of it by putting it in a bucket of water, or just using it as the leaves as a mulch and putting them down on top of my soil, and they'll break down and put their nutrients back in. A lazy form of gardening. So I let it go to flower, and garlic doesn't really produce seeds anymore because it's been bred out of producing seeds. Only certain types do. But it produces at the top these wee bulbous that look like that, so wee clumps of them. And then I just leave them, and they fall down in the ground and they root, and you get a patch of garlic. But there won't be enough space for them to expand to get like big bulbs. But we just come out and cut garlic greens all year round.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so like this is our garlic patch, and you'll
Right,
see
so-
around the garden there's lots of garlic patches where I just let it go.
Okay, so just plant garlic at the normal time
Or any time.
or any time.
Yeah.
And just leave it to flower and
Yeah, and it's a really good companion plant for a lot of things because it's such a strong smell. It's like chives, so I've got garlic and chives in a lot of places in the garden because of their strong odour. They'll repel a lot of pests. They repel slugs, don't they?
Not really.
Not
nothing
Neilston
repels
slugs. Neilston slugs are like GM.
Yeah.